Matt Alt here, and I am coming to you from sweaty, summery Kamakura, Japan, where I'm down for the afternoon, spending a little time near the beach. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the topic that was the subject of my last video, which I'll link to in the description down at the bottom. I was talking about AI's impact on Japan's creative industries from a kind of legal and philosophical standpoint. But I thought you might be interested to know about some of the actual AI tools that are being used today or trying to be used today in a very specific creative field, which is the production of manga. Right now, the majority of AI-based tools are being used on the consumer side, which is to say, to localize the manga. Localization is a big word that encompasses translation. It's basically preparing content from one language and region and culture for consumption in another one. I know a lot about this because it was my bread and butter for many years. Together with my wife and partner, Hiroko Yoda, we ran a company called Alt Japan Co. Limited, and we localized a lot of Japanese video games, manga, all sorts of things. And we did it the old-fashioned way, which is to say ourselves. We did it with people. We did it with translators that we hired. But now there's such a demand for Japanese pop cultural content that companies are having a hard time keeping up. And so they're looking into using AI tools to help them translate and also lay out the manga for English consumption. There's a company called Orange that recently got almost 20 million, or the equivalent of 20 million USD in funding for what it purports to be a AI-based, completely automated translation system. And they also have been working with Japanese companies, including Shueisha, on doing AI-based lettering, because this is another big thing. Once you translate a manga from Japanese into English, of course, you have to get all of that text onto the page. And to do that, you need to have somebody traditionally do the lettering by hand. Now, manga present a really kind of specific set of problems when you're talking about trying to automate the translation of them. And that is that the text is often in really tiny word balloons that are oriented vertically instead of horizontally, as is the case for Western Romance languages. Also, they're often written in kind of wild fonts and sizes and things like that. And this puts aside the whole factor of like, manga are set in fantasy worlds, so often they're using really strange forms of expression and things like that. I haven't yet seen an AI system that can really match at all what a human can do, but they're saying that these things are improving by leaps and bounds, and that's why certain companies want to invest in them. I personally, as a former localizer, do not think that the translators and letterers are really the thing holding up the process here. There's a lot more steps involved, but that's a story for another time, and I'm not going to weigh in here on whether the AI tools will get better or not, because we don't know. I want to give you the state of the art, so to speak. So I've been oh, there comes a train. I'm right by a train line. Maybe you can hear it rumbling below me. So that's what's happening on the kind of consumption side, or preparing the content for consumption side. But there are also some steps being made to use AI tools in the production of the original content on the what you might call the editorial side. And I actually think editorial side is a great word to use when you're talking about manga, because particularly for the big leagues like Jump Magazine or Kodansha's Morning or any of these major weekly or monthly manga magazines, it's the editors who really drive the content. They are the ones, so even though the manga artists are of course making the manga, it's the editors who kind of call the shots about what direction stories should take or what kinds of characters should be in, so it's really a kind of collaborative process. Now that is like about as human as it gets. People in a room trying to figure out the direction of their creative endeavor. But here too, there are early, I guess you'd call them strides. I don't know if it's a move ahead or sideways or back or what, to use AI to help brainstorm new ideas, to help write dialogue for characters. And you might be asking yourself, why? Why would anybody even want to cede control to an AI at this, for a job like this? Isn't it a dream job to be a manga artist or an editor on a manga? Well, the answer to that is that making manga is one of the most inefficient processes you can possibly think of. I say that with love. And I mean inefficient because it's all done by hand. It's all written by hand. It's all drawn by hand. It's all hashed out by hand, traditionally, up until now. But particularly when an artist lands a weekly serial, the workflow, the workload becomes too much for them to keep up with. So they often have to hire out big portions of the job of making manga to other people. They have to hire people to help them do the backgrounds, or maybe they hire someone who only does eyes, or someone who just is good at drawing cars, or whatever the situation calls for. They'll have a team of people working with them pretty much around the clock to make their manga happen. When you start looking at manga as a inefficient, and again, I don't mean that with any kind of judgment, process, you can understand why people might be sort of hungry for new tools to help them to make deadlines, to make more of the content that people love. Will it be a good thing? Will it be a bad thing? Again, this is something that is very, very much up in the air. I personally love the hand touch of manga and the human factor, as it might be called. It's very difficult for me to imagine injecting AI into that process, but it is a fact that it is happening. And manga actually is, despite being a very sort of traditional hand-drawn medium, is really at the forefront of a lot of what the questions and problems that people are bringing up about AI are. Because if you can apply AI to a manga, you can pretty much apply it to anything. So it's a really interesting field to look at, and it's a really interesting field that I hope to be bringing more to you about in the future. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm going to get back to walking around Kamakura, hopefully with a hat on because the sun is still very bright. But it's great talking to you as always, and see you next time.